Let's read this one.
Wing configuration. The wing configuration of a fixed-wing aircraft, including both gliders and powered aeroplanes, is its arrangement of lifting and related surfaces. Aircraft designs are often classified by their wing configuration. For example, the Supermarine Spitfire is a conventional low-wing cantilever monoplane of straight elliptical planform with moderate aspect ratio and slight dihedral. Many variations have been tried. Sometimes the distinction between them is blurred. For example, the wings of many modern combat aircraft may be described either as cropped compound deltas with, forwards or backwards, swept trailing edge, or as sharply tapered swept wings with large leading edge root extensions, or lurks. Some are therefore duplicated here under more than one heading. This is particularly so for variable geometry and combined, closed, wing types. Most of the configurations described here have flown, if only very briefly, on full-size aircraft. A few theoretical designs are also notable. Note on terminology: most fixed-wing aircraft have left-hand and right-hand wings in a symmetrical arrangement. Strictly, such a pair of wings is called a wing plane or just plane. However, in certain situations it is common to refer to a plane as a wing, as in a biplane has two wings, or alternatively to refer to the whole thing as a wing, as in a biplane wing has two planes. Where the meaning is clear, this article follows common usage, only being more precise where needed to avoid real ambiguity or incorrectness. Number and position of main planes, edit. Fixed-wing aircraft can have different numbers of wings. 1 monoplane, 1 wing plane. Since the 1930s most aeroplanes have been monoplanes. The wing may be mounted at various positions relative to the fuselage. 1 low wing, mounted near or below the bottom of the fuselage. 2 mid-wing, mounted approximately halfway up the fuselage. 3 shoulder wing, mounted on the upper part or shoulder of the fuselage, slightly below the top of the fuselage. A shoulder wing is sometimes considered a subtype of high wing. 4 high wing, mounted on the upper fuselage. When contrasted to the shoulder wing, applies to a wing mounted on a projection, such as the cabin roof, above the top of the main fuselage. 5 parasol wing, raised clear above the top of the fuselage, typically by cabin struts, pylon, S, or pedestal, S. Low wing, mid-wing, shoulder wing, high wing, parasol wing. A fixed-wing aircraft may have more than one wing plane, stacked one above another. 1 biplane, 2 wing planes of similar size, stacked one above the other. The biplane is inherently lighter and stronger than a monoplane and was the most common configuration until the 1930s. The very first Wright Flyer-I was a biplane. 1 unequal span biplane, a biplane in which one wing, usually the lower, is shorter than the other, as on the Curtiss JN-4 Jenny of the First World War. 2 sesquiplane, literally 1.5 planes, is a type of biplane in which the lower wing is significantly smaller than the upper wing, either in span or chord or both. The Nieuport 17 of World War I was notably successful. 3 inverted sesquiplane, has a significantly smaller upper wing. The Fiat CR.1 was in production for many years. 4 Bussmann biplane, a theoretical supersonic wing configuration, in which shock waves between the wing planes interfere to reduce their energy and wave drag. Biplane. Unequal span biplane. Sesquiplane. Inverted sesquiplane. Bussmann biplane in cross-section. 1 triplane, 3 planes stacked one above another. Triplanes such as the Fokker Dr. I enjoyed a brief period of popularity during the First World War due to their maneuverability, but were soon replaced by improved biplanes. 2 quadruplane, 4 planes stacked one above another. A small number of the Armstrong Whitworth F.K.10 were built in the First World War but never saw service. 3 multiplane, many planes, sometimes used to mean more than one or more than some arbitrary number. The term is occasionally applied to arrangements stacked in tandem as well as vertically. The 1907 multiplane of Horatio Frederick Phillips flew successfully with 200 wing foils. See also the tandem wing, below. Triplane, quadruplane, multiplane. A staggered design has the upper wing slightly forward of the lower. Long thought to reduce the interference caused by the low-pressure air over the lower wing mixing with the high-pressure air under the upper wing. However, the improvement is minimal and its primary benefit is to improve access to the fuselage. It is common on many successful biplanes and triplanes. Backward stagger is also seen in a few examples such as the Beechcraft stagger wing. Unstaggered biplane. Forward stagger. Backward stagger. A tandem wing design has 2 wings, one behind the other. See tail planes and 4 planes below. Some early types had tandem stacks of multiple planes, such as the 9-wing Caproni CA.60 flying boat with 3 triplane stacks in tandem. A cruciform wing is a set of 4 individual wings arranged in the shape of a cross. The cross may take either of 2 forms. 1 wings equally spaced around the cross-section of the fuselage, lying in 2 planes at right angles, as on a typical missile. 2 wings lying together in a single horizontal plane about a vertical axis, as in the cruciform rotor wing or X-wing. Cruciform wing weapon. Cruciform rotor wing or X-wing rotor. Wing support, edit. To support itself, a wing has to be rigid and strong and consequently may be heavy. By adding external bracing, the weight can be greatly reduced. Originally such bracing was always present, but it causes a large amount of drag at higher speeds and has not been used for faster designs since the early 1930s. The types are 1. Cantilevered, self-supporting. All the structure is buried under the aerodynamic skin, giving a clean appearance with low drag. 2. Braced. The wings are supported by external structural members. Nearly all multiplane designs are braced. Some monoplanes, especially early designs such as the Fokker Eindecker, are also braced to save weight. Braced wings are of 2 types. 1. Strut braced. 1 or more stiff struts help to support the wing, as on the Fokker D.7. A strut may act in compression or tension at different points in the flight regime. 2. Wire braced, alone, as on the Boeing P-26P shooter, or, more usually, in addition to struts, tension wires also help to support the wing. Unlike a strut, a wire can act only in tension. Cantilever. Strut braced. Wire braced. A braced multiplane may have 1 or more bays, which are the compartments created by adding interplane struts. The number of bays refers to one side of the aircraft's wing panels only. For example, the de Havilland Tiger Moth is a single-bay biplane where the Bristol F.2 fighter is a 2-bay biplane. Single-bay biplane. 2-bay biplane. 1 closed wing. 2 wing planes are merged or joined structurally at or near the tips in some way. This stiffens the structure and can reduce aerodynamic losses at the tips. Variants include 1 box wing. Upper and lower planes are joined by a vertical fin between their tips. The first officially witnessed plane to take off and fly, the Santos Dumont 14 bis, used this configuration. Tandem box wings have also been studied, see joined wing description below. 2 annular box wing, a type of box wing whose vertical fins curve continuously, blending smoothly into the wing tips. An early example was the Blériot 3, which featured two annular wings in tandem. 3 annular, cylindrical. The wing is shaped like a cylinder. The Coleoptera had concentric wing and fuselage. It took off and landed vertically, but never achieved transition to horizontal flight. Examples with the wing mounted on top of the fuselage have been proposed but never built. 4 annular, planar. The wing is shaped like a disc with a hole in it. A number of Lee Richards annular monoplanes flew shortly before the First World War. 5 joined wing, a tandem wing layout in which the front low wing sweeps back and forward / or the rear high wing sweeps forward such that they join at or near the tips to form a continuous surface in a hollow diamond or triangle shape. The Ligetti Stratos is a rare example. 1 rhomboidal wing, a joined wing consisting of 4 surfaces in a diamond arrangement. The Edwards rhomboidal biplane of 1911 had both wings in the same plane but failed to fly. Box wing, annular box wing, cylindrical wing, joined wing, flat annular wing, rhomboidal wing. Wings can also be characterized as 1 rigid, stiff enough to maintain the aerofoil profile in varying conditions of airflow. A rigid wing may have external bracing and forward / or a fabric covering. 2 flexible. 1 The surface may be flexible, typically a thin membrane. Requires external bracing and forward / or wind pressure to maintain the aerofoil shape. Common types include the Rigolo wing, parafoil and most kites. 2 An otherwise rigid structure may be designed to flex, either because it is inherently aeroelastic as in the aeroisoclinic wing, or because shape changes are actively introduced. Rigid delta wing. Flexible Rigolo wing. Wing planform, edit. The wing planform is the silhouette of the wing when viewed from above or below. See also variable geometry types which vary the wing planform during flight. Aspect ratio, edit. Main article, aspect ratio, wing. The aspect ratio is the span divided by the mean or average chord. It is a measure of how long and slender the wing appears when seen from above or below. 1 Low aspect ratio, short and stubby wing. Structurally efficient, high instantaneous roll rate, no supersonic drag. They tend to be used on fighter aircraft, such as the Lockheed F-104 Starfighter, and on very high-speed aircraft including the North American X-15. 2 Moderate aspect ratio, general-purpose wing, very widely used, for example on the Douglas DC-3 transport. 3 High aspect ratio, long and slender wing. More efficient aerodynamically, having less induced drag at subsonic speeds. They tend to be used by high-altitude subsonic aircraft such as the Lockheed U-2 spy plane and by high-performance sailplanes such as the Glashütte DG500. Low aspect ratio. Moderate aspect ratio. High aspect ratio. Most variable geometry configurations vary the aspect ratio in some way, either deliberately or as a side effect. Chord variation along span, edit. The wing chord may be varied along the span of the wing, for both structural and aerodynamic reasons. 1 Constant chord, parallel leading and trailing edges. Simplest to make, and common where low cost is important, such as on the Piper J3 Cub, but inefficient as the outer section generates little lift while adding both weight and drag. Sometimes known in North America as the Hershey bar wing due to its similarity in shape to a popular chocolate bar. 1 Tapered, wing narrows towards the tip. Structurally and aerodynamically more efficient than a constant chord wing, and easier to make than the elliptical type. 1 Trapezoidal, a tapered wing with straight leading and trailing edges, may be unswept or swept. The straight tapered wing is one of the most common wing planforms. as seen on the Messerschmitt Bf 109. 2. Inverse or reverse tapered, wing is widest near the tip. Structurally inefficient, leading to high weight. Flown experimentally on the XF-91 Thunderceptor in an attempt to overcome the stall problems of swept wings. 3. Compound tapered, taper reverses towards the root. Typically braced to maintain stiffness. Used on the Westland Lysander Army Cooperation aircraft to increase visibility for the crew. 2. Constant chord with tapered outer section, common variant seen for example on many Cessna types. Constant chord. Tapered, trapezoidal. Reverse tapered. Compound tapered. Constant chord. Tapered outer. 1. Elliptical, leading and trailing edges are curved such that the chord length varies elliptically with respect to span. Sometimes mistakenly said to be the most efficient, in aerodynamics theory, the term elliptical describes the optimal lift distribution over a wing of given span and not its shape, and also difficult to make. Famously used on the Supermarine Spitfire. 1. Semi-elliptical, only the leading or trailing edge is elliptical with the other being straight, as with the elliptical trailing edges of the Seversky P-35. Elliptical. Semi-elliptical. 1. Bird wing, a curved shape appearing similar to a bird's outstretched wing. Popular during the pioneer years, and achieved some success on the Utrecht Taube where its plan form was inspired by the Zalania, also Mitra macrocarpa, seed. 2. Bat wing, a form with radial ribs. The 1901 Whitehead number 21 has been the subject of claims to the first controlled powered flight. 3. Circular, approximately circular plan form. The Vout V173 used large propellers near the tips, which helped to counteract its strong wingtip vortices, and had an outboard tail plane for stability. 1. Flying saucer, circular flying wing. Inherently unstable, as the Avro Canada Avrocar demonstrated. 2. Disc wing, a variant in which the entire disc rotates. Popular on toys such as the Frisbee. 3. Flat annular wing, the circle has a hole in, forming a closed wing, see above. The Lee Richards annular monoplanes flew shortly before the First World War. Bird-like. Bat-like. Circular. Flying saucer. Flat annular. 1. Delta, triangular plan form with swept leading edge and straight trailing edge. Offers the advantages of a swept wing, with good structural efficiency and low frontal area. Disadvantages are the low wing loading and high wetted area needed to obtain aerodynamic stability. Variants are 1. Tailless Delta, a classic high-speed design, used for example in the Dassault Mirage 3 series. 2. Tailed Delta, adds a conventional tailplane, to improve handling. Used on the Mikoyankovic MiG-21. 3. Cropped Delta, wingtips are cut off. This helps avoid tip drag at high angles of attack. The Fairey Delta 1 also had a tail. At the extreme, merges into the tapered swept configuration. 4. Compound Delta or Double Delta, inner section has a, usually, steeper leading edge sweep as on the Saab Draken. This improves the lift at high angles of attack and delays or prevents stalling. By contrast, the Saab Viggen has an inner section of reduced sweep to avoid interference from its canard foreplane. 5. Ogival Delta, a smoothly blended Wineglass double curve encompassing the leading edges and tip of a cropped compound delta. Seen in tailless form on the Concorde supersonic transport. Tailless delta. Tailed delta. Cropped delta. Compound delta. Ogival delta. Wing sweep, edit. Wings may be swept back, or occasionally forwards, for a variety of reasons. A small degree of sweep is sometimes used to adjust the center of lift when the wing cannot be attached in the ideal position for some reason, such as a pilot's visibility from the cockpit. Other uses are described below. 1. Straight, extends at right angles to the line of flight. The most structurally efficient wing, it has been common for low-speed designs since the very first days of the Wright Flyer. 2. Swept back, aka swept wing. The wing sweeps rearwards from the root to the tip. In early tailless examples, such as the Dunn aircraft, this allowed the outer wing section to act like a conventional empennage, tail, to provide aerodynamic stability. At transonic speeds, swept wings have lower drag, but can handle badly in or near a stall and require high stiffness to avoid aeroelasticity at high speeds. Common on high subsonic and early supersonic designs such as the Hawker Hunter. 3. Forward swept, the wing angles forward from the root. Benefits are similar to backwards sweep, also it avoids the stall problems and has reduced tip losses, allowing a smaller wing, but requires even greater stiffness to avoid aeroelastic flutter as on the Sukhoi Su-47. The HFB 320 Hansa jet used forward sweep to prevent the wing spar passing through the cabin. Small shoulder wing aircraft may use forward sweep to maintain a correct cog. Some types of variable geometry vary the wing sweep during flight. 1. Swing wing, also called variable sweep wing. The left and right hand wings vary their sweep together, usually backwards. Seen in a few types of military aircraft, such as the General Dynamics F-111 Aardvark. 2. Oblique wing, a single full-span wing pivots about its midpoint, so that one side sweeps back and the other side sweeps forward. Flown on the NASA AD-1 research aircraft. Straight, swept, forward swept, variable sweep, swing wing, variable geometry, oblique wing, sweep variation along span, edit. The angle of a swept wing may also be varied, or cranked, along the span. 1. Crescent, wing outer section is swept less sharply than the inner section, to obtain a best compromise between transonic shock delay and span-wise flow control. Used on the Handley Page Victor. 2. Cranked arrow, aerodynamically identical to the compound delta, but with the trailing edge also kinked inwards. Trialed experimentally on the General Dynamics F-16XL. 3. M wing, the inner wing section sweeps forward, and the outer section sweeps backwards. Allows the wing to be highly swept while minimizing the undesirable effects of aeroelastic bending. Periodically studied, but never used on an aircraft. 4. W wing, a reversed M wing. Proposed for the Blom and Voss P.188 but studied even less than the M wing and in the end never used. Crescent, cranked arrow, M wing, W wing. Asymmetrical, edit. On a few asymmetrical aircraft the left and right hand sides are not mirror images of each other. 1. Asymmetric layout, the Blom and Voss BV-141 had separate fuselage and crew nacelle offset on either side to give the crew a good field of view. 2. Asymmetric span, on several Italian fighters such as the Ansaldo SVA, one wing was slightly longer than the other to help counteract engine torque. 3. Oblique wing, one wing sweeps forward and the other back. The NASA AD-1 had a full-span wing structure with variable sweep. Asymmetrical torque counteraction. By asymmetric span variable geometry. Oblique wing. Tailplanes and foreplanes, edit. The classic aerofoil section wing is unstable in pitch, and requires some form of horizontal stabilizing surface. Also it cannot provide any significant pitch control, requiring a separate control surface, elevator, mounted elsewhere, usually on the horizontal stabilizer. One conventional, tailplane surface at the rear of the aircraft, forming part of the tail or empennage. It did not become the convention for some years after the Wrights, with the Blériot 7 of 1907 being the first successful example. 2 canard, four-plane surface at the front of the aircraft. Common in the pioneer years, but from the outbreak of World War I no production model appeared until the Saab Viggen in 1967. 3 tandem, 2 or more main wings, one behind the other. Both provide significant lift. An example is the Rutan Quickie. To provide longitudinal stability, the wings must differ in aerodynamic characteristics. Typically the angle of incidence and forward slash or the aerofoils chosen differ between the two wings. The wings on each side may meet at their tips to form a joined wing, see above. 1-3 surface, both conventional tail and canard auxiliary surfaces. Modern examples include the Sukhoi Su-33, while pioneer examples include the Vazon Farman I. 2 outboard tail, split in two, with each half mounted on a short boom just behind and outboard of a wingtip. It comprises outboard horizontal stabilizers, OS, and may or may not include additional boom-mounted vertical stabilizers, fins. In this position, the tail surfaces interact constructively with the wingtip vortices to significantly reduce drag. Used for the scaled composite Spaceship One. 3 tailless, no separate surface, at front or rear. The lifting and stabilizing surfaces may be combined in a single plane, as on the short SB.4 Sherpa whose whole wingtip sections acted as 11s. Alternatively, the aerofoil profile may be modified to provide inherent stability, as on the Dundee.5. Aircraft having a tailplane but no vertical tail fin have also been described as tailless. Conventional tail. Canard. Tandem. 3 surface. Outboard tail. Tailless. Dihedral and anhedral, edit. Angling the wings up or down span-wise from root to tip can help to resolve various design issues, such as stability and control in flight. 1 dihedral. The tips are higher than the root as on the Santos Dumont 14 bis, giving a shallow V shape when seen from the front. Adds lateral stability. 2 anhedral or catahedral. The tips are lower than the root, as on the first Wright Flyer, the opposite of dihedral. Used to reduce stability where some other feature results in too much stability. Some biplanes have different degrees of dihedral /anhedral on different wings. The Soap with Camel had a flat upper wing and dihedral on the lower wing, while the Hanriot HD1 had dihedral on the upper wing but none on the lower. Dihedral. Anhedral. Biplane with dihedral. On both wings. Biplane with dihedral. On lower wing. In a cranked or polyhedral wing the dihedral angle varies along the span. Note that the description cranked varies in usage. See also cranked aeroplan form. 1 gull wing, sharp dihedral on the wing root section, little or none on the main section, as on the PZL-11P fighter. Sometimes used to improve visibility forwards and upwards and may be used as the upper wing on a biplane as on the Policarpo Phi 153. 2 inverted gull wing, anhedral on the root section, dihedral on the main section. The opposite of a gull wing. May be used to reduce the length of wing-mounted undercarriage legs while allowing a raised fuselage, as on the German Junkers Ju-87 Stuka dive bomber. 3 cranked or canted tip. Tip section dihedral differs from the main wing. The tips may have upwards dihedral as on the F4 Phantom II or downwards anhedral as on the Northrop XP-56 Black Bullet. Gull wing. Inverted gull wing. Dihedral tips. Anhedral tips. 1. The channel wing includes a section of the wing forming a partial duct around or immediately behind a propeller. Flown since 1942 in prototype form only, most notably on the Custer channel wing aircraft. Channel wing. Wings versus bodies, edit. Some designs have no clear join between wing and fuselage, or body. This may be because one or other of these is missing.